Good evening. The September 28, 2017 City Council meeting is now called to order. Tonight, our prayer and pledge will be led by Reverend Jay Jackson, Senior Pastor of First United Methodist Church of Longview. Please rise.
Would you join me in prayer? Almighty God, may your holy presence abide here tonight, and may your wisdom be the source of discernment and guidance for our mayor, city manager, councilmen, and others who support them in their work this evening. Gracious and merciful God, we thank you for our public servants, for all who serve the better interests of this community, and ask that you would work in a powerful way to support them, encourage them, and keep them safe in all their endeavors. Lord, we thank you for all who are gathered here for the business of this city this evening, for those who bring concerns as well as those who bring reports, that all of our work would be for the betterment of the Longview community while remembering the needs of the least among us in this place. I pray that in all things our community might embrace your will in all ways, that we would embody the greater purposes beyond our self-interest for the well-being of the whole, while always remembering the impacts on each individual. Guide us all in faithful paths, O God, for your greater purpose. I pray this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ, the one in whom my faith is placed. Amen.
Amen.
And now would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Tonight, employee recognition. The Longview Public Safety Communications Division, more commonly known as Dispatch, serves as the 911 answering point and dispatch center for the City of Longview's police, fire, and EMS services. This diverse group of employees provides emergency communication services to the citizens of Longview 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year. As a TCOLE licensed position, these individuals must complete a rigorous course of training that typically takes a minimum of 12 months, and all PSC employees are cross-trained to be police and fire EMS dispatchers. In 2016, they answered over 256,000 calls, averaging nearly 700 calls per day. From medical emergencies and fires to incidents of criminal activity, this is an industry where each ring of the phone brings something completely unpredictable, and communication staff had to be mentally and emotionally prepared for anything. They provided life-saving CPR instructions, assisted in the delivery of babies, provided reassurance and comforted the residents dealing with acts of violence, and performed countless acts of quiet heroism, which is just simply doing your job. Representing Public Safety Communications, Communications Shift Supervisor Shauna Cates, Senior Telecommunications Operator Kayla McCann, Telecommunications Operator Trainee Destiny Brinkley. The magnitude of what you all do blows my mind. I get about 100 calls a day, and I think I'm going to go, I need to call y'all for 911 counseling. Y'all get 700 a day. It's amazing. But that's what our community does. You step up, you step out, you help those in their need, and you calm those on the other end of the phone. And that's the most important thing we could ask of y'all, because you all are the communication. Because without you all, if they hang up, we lose that line. And so what you all do, what the whole staff does, it's impressive. It's phenomenal. And I appreciate you from the city of Longview, from the city council. Thank you all for what you do. You all are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you all. 700 calls a day. Oh my gosh. I don't want that job. Tonight, community recognition, I'd like to call up Mr. Robert Capehart. Come on up, Robert. He has no idea why he's here, I can promise you. I'm Andy Mack.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you.
Glad to meet you.
Robert and I have never met before, at least to my knowledge.
No?
We've never met. Tell you why Robert's here tonight. Robert is a citizen of Longview that took the time to be persistent enough to get my attention. And I really, really appreciate it. Let me tell you what he did. Robert had a complaint with some lights that were out in the Pinewood Park neighborhood over off of Patricia. Patricia Avenue. He'd called the city, he'd called SWEPCO, he'd called 3 or 4 places over and over since January, correct? If my memory is recalling. And he got no response. Not that, there's a reason he got no response, I'm gonna get that in a minute. Well, then Robert sent a note to Angie. Angie sent the note to me and said, this gentleman wants to talk to me. And so I called Mr. Capehart. And let me assure you, he undressed me, and he should have, because his complaint was legitimate. And I did what I try to do anytime a citizen calls me. I try to get them to go to their council representative because I feel that's the right chain of command. I don't want to step on council's toes. Mr. Capehart was frustrated because he felt like there was imminent danger in this park with our citizens because there were no lights. And he hears gunshots over there, and that's an issue. And I assured him that the council person would take care of it, and he assured me that he wasn't interested. He said, I elected you as the mayor, and you should be responsive to me. And it hit home because he's exactly right. I hope he elected me as the mayor. I hope he voted for me. But it's my job to take that seriously, and so I did. Even though I was less than cordial, and I'm the first one to admit this, and I've apologized to Mr. Capehart since then, but I took it upon myself, and I called Lynn Ferry Nelson at SWEPCO, and I said, first I called city, Scott Karen got on this, but I talked to Lynn Ferry Nelson, and I said, Lynn, this gentleman is saying there's lights out, this is the address, we can't seem to get it taken care of, it's on the SWEPCO line. She goes, let me handle it. And she called me back, and she said, Andy, we don't even show that on our grid. Said that's why he's having no luck getting it done, because it's not even showing. It is a SWEPCO line, but it was not on their grid. And so he was calling in vain because no one knew where this was. Within the week, Lynn assured me they would have it fixed. They did. I talked to Mr. Capehart. He was gracious enough to take my call after I was not so nice. I have to admit it, and I apologize. But this is what persistence does. He was persistent enough to be the citizen that I wish everybody was, to make sure you stay at it until it gets done. And I appreciate that, sir. And so you are my recognizing citizen this month because you did what you had to do. And as he said, since the lights have been turned back on, the gunshots have gone away, they've moved to someplace else, which we wish they wouldn't have to move. We wish they wouldn't do it. But that neighborhood,
The going away, the drug addicts have gone away.
it's now
The whole
safe again.
neighborhood got safer.
And that's what our job as city is to do, but this is what this gentleman did because he stayed after it and he was persistent. And so I want to personally say thank you, sir, for being a persistent citizen, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much.
That's a fine citizen right there who really did undress me. I'm just telling you. And I deserved every minute of it. We're now to citizen comment. I have speaker cards, but they're along with the action items, so I won't take those now. Anyone else would like to speak and hasn't filled out a card at this point in time? Then we'll move on. Thank you very much. Public safety update. Chief Bishop.
Mayor Mack, council members, Mr. Willard, I have just a few things tonight that I'd like to share with you. We're closely approaching our National Night Out, which is coming up Tuesday, October 3rd. Tonight I can report, as of tonight, we have 118 registered parties. So we're just 9 shy of where we were at last year at 127. So if we still have some out there that want to host a National Night Out block party or a Crime Watch meeting at your home, please get that registered so that we can be sure that we have police and fire and city personnel stop by. And they can do that at longviewtexas.gov/NNO. Yesterday, I'd like to give a shout out to East Texas Christian School for their Adopt a Leader program. I look forward to this year. I have the opportunity to spend the year and talking with the kindergartner class out there, Miss Attaway's kindergarten class. We had a good time the other day visiting, and I look forward to visiting with them throughout the year. Also, this past week, we finished up our last women's safety course for the year. We had 25 women go through the course, learning about women's safety and spending the day at the range. So we'll be continuing this course. Our next one won't be until after the first of the year. So anybody that's interested in participating in this course, I would encourage them to look for that advertisement after the first of the year. Also, I'd like to remind everybody about our prescription drug drop box that we have in the lobby of the police department. This is an effort that we started 2 years ago with Partners in Prevention on a way to safely dispose of unused, unwanted, and expired medications. We have a box in the lobby of the police department where they can drop their unwanted or unused prescription medication. And just to show you, in the 2 years just shy of 2 years that we've had this program in here, we've collected 1,291 pounds of unwanted prescription medication that was no longer usable. And I know I know Public Works will echo this. It's better to dispose of it this way than to flush it into the commodes and into our system and all of that. So I'd like to encourage everybody to dispose of their unwanted prescription medications in that box in the lobby. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Chief Bishop. Any questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Steelman.
Mayor, members of council, Mr. Willard, thank you for the opportunity to update you on a few things from the fire department since we last met. First and foremost, and Mayor, you talked about this in your State of the City address just yesterday, deployments. We are still actively deployed in several different locations, not just in the United States, but actually we had a guy go to Puerto Rico, and I'll give you more on that in just a minute. The unique thing about this first one is still from Hurricane Harvey. And Hurricane Harvey impacted the state almost a month ago. And you know that the recovery process of that is going to be a long, arduous task. The real unique thing about this is some of these personnel deployed down on that initial, before the hurricane made landfall. They rode the storm out. They stayed and they helped out with the early days, the early onset of trying to figure out how bad is bad. They demobbed. They came back to Longview, Texas. And then things really started getting a little bit worse, especially in the area of Rockport. So they specifically called the state of Texas and said, hey, we really need those Longview people back down here because they were such a help on the front end and we're struggling on the back end of this event. And so they specifically asked for names of people. We want this guy back. And so they've been back down there for almost 14 days. They are scheduled to demob and come back to Longview on Saturday. They're down there helping with the recovery process, and I commend them for what they're doing. They're doing excellent work representing the city. Hurricane Maria didn't really impact us. We got lucky on that one. But we actually had one member of our department deploy with the Texas Task Force 1. It's a USAR team. He went down to Puerto Rico with a bigger deployment, and he assisted with damage assessment, doing welfare checks of their residents, making sure everybody was okay, and finding out what they're assessing their local needs. And again, that's another impact that's going to take some time to recover from. This individual actually got demobilized today, and he's now back in Texas, and we hope to get him back in the next couple of days to work. But we're certainly proud to represent Longview even outside of the state of Texas. South Texas flooding. I don't know if you've paid much attention to this one. Texas is such a vast state, but this has been going on down in South Texas along the Rio Grande and the Pecos River. They're expecting a lot of flash flooding, so they activated some more of our Texas Task Force members. We actually sent 6 personnel to make up 2 boat squads to go down, and they've actually been involved down there helping oil field workers that were isolated and cut off by the rising water to get them off of those oil sites to get them to safe ground. I expect them to hopefully be back by the 1st of next week. It's pretty cool when the state of Texas calls 911 and they ask for the Longview Fire Department to come help. So I'm proud of the work that our people are doing out all over the place. Our CERT team, this is a volunteer group that we have. It's an extension of emergency management here in the city. This is made up of volunteers, just regular Longview citizens that want to play a role in keeping our community safe and helping us recover from the impact of a major event. They receive specialized training in first aid, search and rescue, lots of different things that they're specialized in. They got called the other day to go assist Russ County in the search for Bubba T. Y'all probably saw that on the news, read about it in the paper. These people are boots on the ground. They're ready to go. They're ready to jump in and lend a hand. They have training in that, and they spent pretty much a whole day over there looking around for Bubba T. And they were really appreciated for going over there and helping out. They needed all the manpower that they could get. So we're certainly proud of our CERT team. Pipeline Safety Day. This was actually today out at the fairgrounds in the Mall Cobb area. As you well know, the oil and gas industry being what it is here in our local area, you can hardly sink a shovel in some places without hitting a pipeline of some kind. So this event is kind of designed to get emergency responders and the utility people together so that they understand where the other is coming from. So it's a great day, a lot of training, a lot of different events to go through so that we understand their equipment, they understand ours. The Longview Fire Department was certainly glad to be a sponsor of this, along with the Texas Engineering Extension Service from Texas A&M University. So good day of training out there. The Ukrainian delegation. I actually missed this because I was on another little assignment, but I always enjoy having Ukrainians come by and visit. Visiting the fire department is a highlight of their day. I know some of you got to be involved with that. So we're typically their lunch stop. We feed them lunch. We demo a lot of equipment. They had a great time, lots of pictures. They had just amazing looking at our equipment and seeing what all we had. I always ask the question, when are we going to go over there? And then I see on the news last night they have bombs and things exploding, so
Go
I'm
ahead,
good.
Chief.
I'm gonna stay around here. I'm good. Ammunition dumps blowing up, I don't think that's very much fun, so I'm gonna stick around here. Code Red, I'm gonna keep talking about this one. Our numbers are slowing down, so Longview, I need you to keep paying attention and signing up for this one. We've only gained 7 new people signing up for Code Red since I last talked about it. It's a free service. Know when this stuff is going to happen. Get that advance warning before the sirens go off so that you know why the sirens are going off. And you knew this one was coming. EMS subscription program starts October 1, which is Monday, right around the corner. So this is another service that's provided by the City of Longview and the Longview Fire Department where you can register qualified members in your household for $70 a year, and that is the only out-of-pocket expense you're going to have in the event of a medical emergency. So Monday it starts. That time frame is pretty narrow for a lot of people. It ends on December the 31st, so we encourage our residents to re-up or to check it out about signing up for the first time. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief? Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're now to consent agenda. Any items council like pulled off for separate discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now to zoning. Annexation public hearing will be held to consider proposed annexation of approximately 40.6 acres on East Loop 281. Ms. Self.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has received a request for annexation of approximately 40.648 acres of land situated in the ETJ, located directly adjacent to the city limits north of East Loop 281, east of Tryon Road, and west of Hollybrook Drive. Earlier this year, City Council authorized staff to enter into a 380 agreement with the developer to extend an 8-inch sanitary sewer line. As part of this agreement, the developer agreed to request annexation and construct a rehabilitation hospital containing a minimum of 30,000 square feet and at least 30 patient beds. Tonight is the last public hearing that will be held prior to final action of the annexation on October 19, 2017. As part of the annexation, a service plan has been prepared. All basic city services such as sanitation, police, fire, and EMS will be provided on the date of annexation. No roadways will be included in this annexation. Capital improvements will include the extension of the sewer line. The total cost for this extension will be approximately $235,774.99, which includes both the construction of the sewer line and the engineering and related surveying costs. In May of this year, a contract was awarded to W.M. Miller Construction, Company of Longview, Texas, to construct the sewer main. The property already has access to city water. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This requires a public hearing, which is now open. Any speakers on this issue? Council, any questions of Ms. Self? Public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Ingrid. Action item, consider resolution adopting 5-year CIP program. Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, council. This year's CIP, if I can have a button. Is it forward? There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Our improvements are based on the policy that was set by council in 2000. We've been doing that for a long time. It's based on what we have from our master plans, our studies, our comprehensive plan most recently. And we look at the projects, assign urgencies and priorities to develop each year's plan. This was last year's CIP, $16.5 million. A couple of those are complete. Most of those are in design or beginning construction. What we're recommending for this year's drainage projects is we have Eden Drive, where we had an area that has an inadequate storm drainage system, has had house flooding repetitive for at 1238 and 1240 Eden Drive. That's $75,000. We also have another repetitive flooding, but this is located in the flood plain. We've done some research, and FEMA has a repetitive loss program that's administered with FEMA and with the Texas Water Development Board. They will call for a grant application sometime in the next quarter, and we've done some preliminary work and priced that out. They do a share cost of about 80%, and we do about 20%. The $125,000 is our part of buying those properties or mitigating those losses, which were repetitive loss. It's either buy the home or elevate the home or provide improvements to reduce the risk or remove it altogether. Our third drainage project is a culvert improvement. This is a dead-end road, so we wouldn't want that to wash out. Of the last couple of rains we've had, spring 2016 and May of 2017 this year, major events where we had some of our culverts wash out. This is an important one. They're old metal, they're dilapidated. We've had emergency repairs done on them, so we want to get that done pretty quick. This is where they're located. The properties on Airline, those are the ones that the FEMA grant is a part of, and then the Meadowview culvert up in the northwest part of the city. Total project costs are $400,000, and that would come from our quarter-cent drainage tax, sales tax. Our recommended facility improvements, we just got back a study as a part of last year's CIP for Mod Cobb Activity Center. One of the biggest things out there was to do some paving improvements, among others. We broke the paving down into at least two areas for the CIP, and we're focusing on doing the south parking lot pavement for this coming CIP, $500,000. We're just going to pulver mix the existing pavement, similar to what we did for the parking lots over here just on the other side of Fredonia and High, where we improved those city-owned parking lots, and we can do that. The other one is a study for the police and fire facilities, a space planning study at $100,000. That's to focus on the current and future space needs for fire stations 5, 7, and 8, as well as the fire department facility. Those graphics are kind of bled through there, but that's the Mod Cobb Activity Center. We're just showing the area that we wanted to pave, the south parking lot. The north parking lot is also needing to be paved, but we don't want to do everything at once just based on the funding. We also include the west and the east portions of the activity center to get that done at once. As our study cost is $500,000, and that would be funded by the hotel occupancy tax. And then the study for the fire and the police facilities That's the location of those, and that would come from the general funds that's been budgeted. Our wastewater projects, old sewer lines that need replacement. We have 3 major projects identified for our line replacement program at Lake, Ninth Street, and Shelley Street. That's where they're located. That's $900,000, and that's funded through our operation and maintenance budget and CIP reserve fund. Now our water that we're recommending, our water projects, this is another one due to, you might say, that storm I just mentioned earlier. 2016, we had some damage at our Lake of the Pines raw water pump station intake structure. What you see here is these are large walls. They're about 100 feet long. There's Lake of the Pines. This is where the water's pumped in, and it's raw. It's sent to our treatment plant at Lake of the Pines. So this thing can send up to 10 million gallons a day. But the shoreline and the banks that have been protected since it was built in 1999 suffered damage from those repetitive storm events. So we've been in contact with FEMA on getting a reimbursement to take care of the erosion damage, to take care of the threat to the intake structure, because this is a critical structure, but it's a lot of money to make that repair. FEMA's amount is $768. Like again, we would make a share of that of 20%. So the total cost is $950,000, and that'll be in the summary. We had an engineer do the estimate, and you see some of the damage here from this is the slope protection. It's like riprap. You see it buckled and warped, and it's heaving. It's lost its foundation, and so we've had our engineers look at it. We had FEMA engineers look at it as well. Another piece of infrastructure needing some work is our water towers, the storage tank rehabilitation at White Cemetery. This is $400,000. Clean, sandblast. This is like regular maintenance that we do. Except it's been 20 years, so it's time to paint it again. This is our Grace Creek bank stabilization. We have a water transmission line that goes up and down Grace Creek. We've had some excessive scour from all those storms. It's hard to see in that slide, and I'm sorry. Right over in there, it's not that, ignore that, that's some other utility, but we got a line that's buried back in the bank, and it's only about 6 foot deep, and that bank's 12 foot deep, and it keeps wanting to go that way. So we need to come up with a improvement that'll protect that bank and stop that scour. And that's at Grace Creek in 80. This is the location of our regular line replacement for water on McGrill Whaley. We have $900,000 budgeted for those. Those are like 2-inch lines that need to be upsized, or they're older infrastructure, like in the downtown area, that they're worn out and they need to be replaced. So Whaley and McGrill second. Just a quick summary on the raw water pump station. That was $950,000 was the estimate. FEMA's portion of that, if they eventually fund that, which we hope they do, is $760,000. The rest of those I did cover in terms of the cost. The summary is 10 projects. We have $4.4 million. That concludes my presentation. Is there any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Bradley? Mr. Moore?
I've got some comments. I certainly have no qualms about the 2018 projects. I think they're well thought out. I view this total 5-year CIP as kind of a short-term blueprint to implement our 2025-year comprehensive plan. So I assigned myself some homework. I laid out the 27 priorities of the comprehensive plan, this year's CIP and next year's CIP together. And a couple things. I'm glad you updated some of the cost estimates. That will come in handy when the CPAC meets again. I'm glad that there are some projects in Pine Tree in the 5-year plan. What I am perplexed about is that in municipal facilities, there's a $6 million conference center that I found nowhere in the comprehensive plan, and its priority is higher than 2 of our public safety projects. So my point is, when we adopt the CIP, I would ask that we adopt it with the amendment that the conference center be eliminated, and if the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee wants to put it back in the priority list later on and bring it back to us, fine. But I think the conference center is a holdover from an old CIP, so I would ask.
It wasn't
that we
something that was
do that.
brought before this council since I've been on as the mayor, so. Correct. Thank you, sir. Mr. Purtle.
Is the transportation items included on this agenda that we're looking at?
This year, we did not have any transportation CIP.
I received an email that's supposed to be on this agenda that's got transportation, parks and recreation. It is not offered this year? Okay. So when are we going to address our street situation on some streets and stuff that we wanted to look at?
I think that'll be looked at, based on how we try and fund that, but, one of the highest priorities on the transportation CIP was the Fairmont Drive reconstruction.
I see that, and right now Fairmont is going from H.G. Mosley to Northwest Drive. When I talked to Rollin, I really want to look at doing that from Avenue B all the way to H.G. Mosley. That whole street, the whole thing needs to be redone, and I think by just doing it in front of the high school, we have so much more traffic that comes both ways, not
Yes,
just down H.G. Mosley to get to the high school there. So I would really like to see that updated and the cost of that updated. And if we have to do something in the future, I don't want to Band-Aid it. I want it to be fixed. I want it to be reconstructed.
Yes, sir, that's how that's presented in that 5-year CIP.
Okay.
It come up for, everybody knows it's a bad street, and it come up. And the pavement management application that we use would not pick it for an overlay because it is so bad. So once it comes, or you might say it drops down to that level, we want to fund it for complete reconstruction.
Well,
So-
I don't want an overlay. I want it redone.
No, it wouldn't be an overlay.
Yeah.
We wanted, there was parts of Fairmont that did get overlaid over by McCann, east and west of there, but this one was too far gone.
Yeah, it's got about 6 or 7 layers on it.
But it rebuilt, it's correct.
Also, on this sheet here, we're looking at the estimated initial estimate cost for the fire stations. I don't think you can build some of them stations for that. I think they're going to have to be, $1.4 million for a fire station. I don't think that's near enough. I mean, where are we getting those estimates from?
Well, some of those are from an earlier study, but the estimates that will be generated by the
space study.
fire facilities space planning study, we'll look at those as well.
Okay, what is that study going to include? I mean, what are we looking at in the study?
Well, we want to look at what we need for future use for fire stations 5, 7, and 8, whether we need to do additions or just start over.
I really think we need to start over. And I'm kind of like Mr. Moore, I'm kind of concerned that some of those items are down on that list in urgency or priority. I would rather see, like Fire Station 5, I'd rather see it up there in priority 1 with the other 2. I think those items are a life safety issue for that side of town, and I
Yes, sir.
really think we need to address that. I think
Thank
that's
you.
it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Couple of comments, questions. Thank you for your presentation. I think that I want to begin by saying, first of all, the CIP list is not the final. They are recommendations. And and so we need to keep that in perspective. Just because it's on the list, they are unfunded. And so that does not mean they're going to happen. In regard, and while I understand what Mr. Moore is saying too, because that was something that was discussed, the conference center, before we have the current council we have now. But at the same time, my position is regardless of whether we do that type of conference center or some type of other facility, whether it's an amphitheater or whatever it is, I think that we may need to keep that on there just because what it says is that we're looking at potentially doing, it doesn't say this is what we're doing. And I just want the public to understand that that is a list. It is unfunded. It has to come before council, and the projects with the fire stations, I think that will be addressed when we get our facility study back. And I think those numbers will change. And I do agree with Councilmember Purtle that we may need to start over to a certain degree on that. And the reason I say that is because just knowing what I know about how it goes, when we get the study back, it's going to change anyway. And we don't have just a big bundle of money that we can pick, a big tree we can pick money off of. So we're going to have to actually exercise our due diligence as a council and with our mayor's leadership as well to make sure that we select the right projects, because we may not be able to do all the fire stations. We may not be able to rebuild all the fire stations or police stations, but we know what we need. So, and y'all know we know. So I just wanted to make sure and put that out there for clarification that, and there are some things that need to drop off. But every year, there's turnover on the council. And so there's no way that we can keep just a solid, this is what we're doing. But as long as they fall in line with the comprehensive plan, which those projects do, our job is to vote in favor of it. That's it.
I don't mind having the conference center in there, but they score these things with priority and urgency, and there's a composite score, and they've ranked it above 2 public safety projects. I don't mind leaving it on there, but let's drop it to the bottom of the list.
Well, the other part to that, I think that we know that our public facility, our public safety facilities are paramount right now. We know that. And that's why, even though no matter how they're ranked, we as a council and mayor, we have the right to override some of that, because I think that falls in line with public sentiment as well, that we have a responsibility. So, and that's why I just want to make sure we don't get caught in the weeds on it, and say we're taking that off, because we may build something, who knows? But, just keep it on there and some other things as well. So, it's just my thought.
Anyone else? Excellent. Is there a motion on this?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Consider resolution authorizing the city to participate in part of the CARD dealings with SWEPCO. Mr. Finley.
On July 31st of this year, SWEPCO filed an application with the PUC seeking authority to acquire an interest in a project called the Wind Catcher Connection Project. It's a wind generation facility that's being constructed in Oklahoma. They estimate that the cost will be about $4.5 billion. And of this amount, $1.1 billion is attributed for recovery for Texas ratepayers. What we're doing as CARD is we're wanting to intervene to be able to do our due diligence in looking at the project as to the amount that's being, that's whether its allocation is correct, and determine if and when this should be allocated and the reasonableness of the transaction. Generally, these are, I believe this is not being considered a rate case, so therefore our expenses are not reimbursed. However, the coalition has capped it based on population participation on our due diligence, and I believe our amount would be $7,200, be capped at that. It could be up to that amount. So I ask that we go ahead and participate in this and determine our due diligence, and if further action is needed, we'll be back.
Any questions of Mr. Finley?
Mr. Finley, if we don't get involved, or even if we do get involved with this, if this goes through and it costs the $4 billion, that's going to get tacked onto our rates down the road?
Well, I think
possibly?
they're looking at about $1.1 billion to be attached to our rates, and they're claiming that there will be a $750 offset with the savings that it'll create. But part of our process is to look at the reasonableness of the purchase. A lot of times, these utilities will enter into contracts to receive this power rather than be actual ownership in the transmission line that they're going to be building. And with that is increase the risk. And so that's things that need to be looked at to see, what or if should be attributed or allocated toward the cities in Texas. So.
And the 7,200 is in the budget?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Mr. Finley?
Second.
Just one second. Mr. Finley, I appreciate your time on this. I know this is not real glamorous work, but I appreciate you spending your time to help us as tax-paying citizens. And this is, something that I can't even hardly really comprehend. But if you being our attorney, if you say this is something we need to do, then I'm going to trust your judgment. And I appreciate you bringing that forth and saying this is what you feel we need to do. So thank you very much for that. There's a motion, a second. Is there all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll consider resolution on the reconciling fuel costs. It's considered submitted in August of 2017. Mr. Finley.
This is one that we routinely become involved with every 3 years about the utilities reconcile their fuel cost. And it appears that they filed an application that had recovered about $4.3 million more than with the fuel. So what we do is we intervene to see if this number is correct and how it should be attributed back to the ratepayers. So we ask that we intervene with this. The expenses are covered, or reimbursed, I'm sorry.
Any questions, Mr. Finley, on this issue? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consider an ordinance amending chapters 58 and 67 of the Longview City Code to prohibit solicitation by coercion. Mr. Jackson.
Mayor and council, thank you for permitting me to bring this proposed ordinance before you tonight. Much of what is presented for your consideration is based on the findings of Mayor Mack's Homelessness Task Force and due to the mayor and the committee's hard work. And although I stand before you this evening, Jim Finley and Robert Ray from our office have contributed significantly to the development of this ordinance and its presentation. Article 2 of Chapter 67 of our Longview Code of Ordinances is new. It's entitled Solicitation. Article 2 establishes 3 solicitation-free zones in which solicitation will be prohibited. Those are the Central Business District, East Marshall Avenue, and Loop 281. The Central Business District is bounded on North High Street on the west, Marshall Avenue on the north, 6th Street and Moberly on the east, and Cotton Street on the south. It basically covers the downtown area. I believe we have a map. It gives you an idea of that central area or center area which it would cover. The East Marshall solicitation-free zone, the boundaries are the East Marshall The boundaries are the East Marshall Avenue from 6th Street east to Industrial Boulevard, and 1/4 mile on each side of East Marshall Avenue. And this is the map generally illustrating that area. The 3rd district would be the Loop 281 solicitation-free zone. The boundaries are Loop 281 from Gilmer Road, going eastward to North Eastman Road and the overpass, and 1/4 mile on each side of Loop 281. And again, that area is illustrated in the map before you. Also in the ordinance, no solicitation in any outdoor area is permitted in a solicitation-free zone unless it's on private property with the owner's consent. Article 2 of Chapter 67 also makes solicitation by coercion illegal. And of course, that would be threatening acts, persistence after a negative response, blocking the passage, that type of behavior. Solicitation in outdoor areas anywhere in the city between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. is prohibited unless it's on private property with the owner's consent. Finally, solicitation in certain areas is prohibited, such as within 50 feet of an ATM, within 50 feet of a food establishment, or in a park or within 50 feet of that park. Chapter 67 has a unique penalty provision, which applies also to Chapter 58. If an individual is charged with a violation of the ordinance, that person would be given the opportunity to enter into a program as established by the Longview Police Department. I believe that Chief Bishop has previously discussed this, as also the mayor has. This program would have an emphasis on counseling, developing life skills, obtaining employment or other necessary assistance, and if the person is successful in that program, then the case against them would be dismissed. The details of the program would be developed by the Longview Police Department, and the department will tailor a specific program for each individual that's involved in the program. A person's program may include placement in a shelter such as House of Disciples, Highway 80 Rescue Mission, or House of Hope. The Longview police officers involved would be able to utilize available resources such as Perkins Partnership, doors, and medical or counseling options, with the goal of removing the individual from the streets and to provide opportunities for them to better their life. I anticipate funding from programs such as the Mayor's Go-Giver Gala may be used to defray expenses when and if monetary costs are involved. Working frequently with the homeless, I can tell you that this program, and especially the penalty phase, implementing these programs, that's going to be a marathon rather than a sprint. Sometimes these things take a bit of time. Police officers will need to be able to determine which resources will ultimately be the most valuable for them and which resources will be consistently available and economically feasible for us to use in reaching the homeless with opportunities appropriate in housing and employment, counseling, development of life skills, and those things. That's because in dealing with the homeless, it's often, as I said, fluid and not a static opportunity. Now, for those who refuse assistance, or if they're not successful in the program, there's a default to the traditional criminal justice system. However, the goal must always be, first and foremost, to assist the homeless and to provide opportunities for the homeless to assist themselves, never to be punitive. There's also proposed changes to Chapter 58. Chapter 58, and especially Section 5877, has been amended and prohibits sleeping or lounging upon any public street, alley, highway, sidewalk, or other public property where others tend to walk, run, or otherwise travel upon, or use for recreational purposes. Finally, Section 5878 prohibits camping in the city but provides exceptions for backyard campouts and for city-permitted events. I understand that we've covered a lot tonight, and the material has been a great deal that's been condensed into a brief span, but thank you for letting me present this to you, and I'm available for questions at this time.
Thank you, Terry. You've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate the time that you all have put into this to make this part of what we're discussing tonight. Is there comments to Mr. Jackson?
Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Terry. Could you walk me through what happens, because I heard the enforcement pieces. Walk me through what happens, please, if someone is caught soliciting or asking money, or panhandling rather.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know what that looks like, because if I'm hearing you correctly, first they would be given an opportunity
Yes, ma'am.
to get into a program.
Yes, ma'am.
So are we going to have law enforcement officers that are going to just specifically be watching this, the officers that are on duty in that area? Or does this require someone calling? How does that work?
Well, I anticipate, and Chief Bishop can correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm viewing this incorrectly, but there's been talk of a couple of officers, and the acronym has been HOT, the HOT team. A
Right.
couple of officers that would become skilled and expert in being able to know where resources are. Very good question, Ms. Williams. My thought would be that any officer, of course, may come into contact with someone that's violating the ordinance. If that happens, well, then they can either do this or call in immediately, if available, the two officers that have been selected for the program.
Okay.
The charges would be filed and go to the municipal court, because the municipal court has the authority then to require someone to be involved in the program. But the municipal court would then return the person to the police officers, especially the HOT officers, the HOT team. And at that time, they, through the opportunity that they've developed for resources to become knowledgeable of these resources, they might have a program that would involve placing a person in a shelter. And in most shelters, there are programs that can assist them, such as the Highway 80 Rescue Mission, that can assist them in a variety of areas, or in House of Disciples, in Freedom House, for instance. Or someone may have housing, and they might, some degree of housing that they're comfortable with, but they might need other things. They may need counseling, and these officers would refer them to that. If they accomplish this, and the officers would have to monitor this, or someone's that the officers direct, and this may be a little beyond the scope of your question, but then the officers would report back to the court. One, that the person has been successful, and then the case will be dismissed. Again, always with the desire to be helpful, to provide individuals those things that they need to be successful, to get them off the streets. But if they're not successful, and I'm a realist, I know that that's not going to always happen. They're not always going to be successful. Well, then they have other opportunities, can return to the court, and at the court at that time can look and see, well, what do we need to do in this case? If a person could certainly have a trial, but if they, and all along they would be eligible to have a trial.
Right.
But if that doesn't occur, or if they plead guilty or no contest, then the court would look at options, and this would be our second opportunity, a second bite of the apple, and that would be community service, and maybe placing individuals in community service where they could obtain good influences, maybe education, those type of things along the way. And then if that failed, well, then we go back to looking at the case from the judicial perspective.
And thank you for really explaining that. I understand that the end game is to help the people. I get that. And I love that piece of it.
Yes.
I guess my question more clearly is step number one, they go to jail? I guess that's my question, because I heard you say charges are filed. Or
No, charges would be filed, but not presented to the jail. Now, of course, other things could influence that if the police officer came upon somebody that was completely out of control.
Right, combative, yes.
But that would not be the first step. The first step would be maybe either issuing them a citation or notice to appear in court.
Got it. Okay, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
The goal of this, Ms. Williams and all council, is to take the burden off of our judicial system with these individuals that have no ability to defend or represent themselves in any way. And it does them no good to be in jail, and it just costs us, the city, the county, the taxpayers' dollars. So if we can find an alternative, and Mr. Jackson, they have really worked so hard at this project. If we can find an alternative to keep these individuals out of the system and into a better system, the system that helps them get out of the situation that they're in, that's the goal of this whole process we're going through. So that's the end game.
Right.
Someone else had a question, Ms. Snoddy.
It may be for Chief. I know this is going to be a big job for two officers, the HOT officers. So how long do you anticipate them to be in training for
Well, it
this?
would depend on when we actually selected the officers and then assigned them to that position.
Excuse me, Chief, before we can do any of that, Ms. Snoddy, we have to fund these officers, which we have
We're
not
gonna-
funded these two officers. These are unfunded positions we do not have right now, which I'll get back to that in a minute.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And it would take us a little bit to get some training that they would need and maybe visit some other departments that had these programs to see how their programs are operated and bring some ideas back here to model our program after.
Thank you.
Mr. Purtle.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
I visited with you this afternoon, and we talked about some of the other areas that I wanted to include in this.
Yes, sir.
Is that on the West Loop 281 and also on West Marshall?
Yes, sir. And we did discuss, and there is the opportunity also, there's concern that there needs to be an expansion of that. I believe there's an amended ordinance also that if the council chooses to go with that, which would include an area, a fourth area that would be from Gilmer Road on West Marshall Avenue west to Fisher and expand a half mile each side, and from Gilmer Road on Loop 281, and I believe that would be northwest, southwest, going around to Cotton Street,
Well,
those areas.
Do we need to include Lear Park in that? 'Cause
No,
we're not-
I
we're
believe
not
parks
catching-
Parks are already included.
included.
Well, I mean, the stuff across the street from it.
The stuff across the street are restaurants, and that's included.
Okay,
Restaurants and parks,
Okay, so-
ATMs, banks, those are all already included.
okay. So do we have, where on 80 do we have, from east 80 to west, where do we have now in these amendments?
And let me answer that, Mr. Purtle, if I may. On Highway 80, West Marshall, we would have east from 6th Street going back to Industrial Boulevard east, but then we would have from Gilmer Road west to Fisher Road. But it would be, as we've discussed, a broader width in that, 1/2 mile each
Okay,
side
half mile
instead of a
each way.
quarter.
Well, why are we leaving out the middle?
Just those areas that individuals have felt would be, I guess, the hot zones or the areas where it's most needed. But of course, this is just a beginning, and as we see whatever needs there are, those things could be expanded, or as the population changes, areas could conceivably be deleted.
Okay, so let me make sure. We're going from Gilmer Road to
Yes.
Fisher Road.
I'm sorry.
We're going from Gilmer Road to Fisher Road, right?
If
the
the
west side?
council approves,
And
then
we're
Mr.
going-
Purtle, just one second. There's a proposed amendment to this that has not been proposed yet.
Okay.
So, you see what I'm saying?
I don't see it.
Well, there's a proposed amendment, but no
Okay.
one has proposed yet. So, I mean, we're talking about the proposal that hadn't been proposed. So
Okay.
if someone wants to propose this amendment, then do so, then we can discuss the proposed amendment.
Okay.
Because Mr. Jackson can't really discuss because it hadn't been proposed yet.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a couple of comments, and then if I'm going to go ahead and say my piece. So first, I just wanted to say this is a really tough issue, and I think that the task force recommendations were really invaluable, being who the task force was made up of. I don't feel like I am an expert in this area. I don't work with the homeless population every day, and so to have the quality of members that Andy put together, Mayor Mack put together for that task force, I feel like we need to respect that recommendation came from people who work with this population all day, every day, and are experts in it where I am not. So that means a lot to me. Also, when you were talking about the penalty, I did just want to comment that this has been a successful idea that our Gregg County judges have really utilized. So through our criminal justice system, several of our judges have been very active in putting together other programs or working with other nonprofits. So when you see a defendant come before that judge, they're able to help them by providing other resources. So I think this would give us a really unique opportunity to provide services to folks that may not be getting them yet. Lastly, I believe, Steve, that you are actually in charge of proposing the amendment for increasing the zones, but I would be in favor of increasing the zones we're considering to include all of Highway 80 and all of Loop 281 for the solicitation zones. That makes more sense to me, but as I've said to several people today, I'm geographically challenged, so that was just easier for me to understand as a area. And finally, I had some concerns, and Terry was very generous with me today to discuss these concerns in the sleeping and lounging provision, which is the 5877. And that one is already on our books. It's already right now unlawful for any person to sleep or lounge in or upon any public street, alley, highway, sidewalk, or other public property. So what is currently being proposed is an amendment to help define it better. But the definition was very troubling to me, so I felt like we needed to have a conversation about what it really means and what we're trying to accomplish so that I feel comfortable about where we are. Because the way that I read it, as presented, it seemed to me if I was just at a park and I was lounging for longer than a moment, it would actually apply to me, you know, just sitting there watching my kids play, and I don't think that's the intent. So the amendment that I had proposed in there is, in that particular provision, is to add that it is unlawful for any person to sleep or lounge in or upon any public street, alley, highway, sidewalk, or other public property where others tend to walk, run, or otherwise travel upon or use when such use impedes the recreational purposes for which it is intended, which I believe is our intent, but I guess we can further discuss that as needed, which would mean that the way it reads, you know, up there when you just say no sleeping or lounging is permitted, it's not really accurate. It's when it's impeding the use of the park or the trail or whatever it may be. And I understand that otherwise doing that would be somewhat controversial because it would be stepping on loitering issues, which is not really permitted for us to regulate. So did I say that accurately enough?
You did. Thank you.
Okay. So my amendment would be really to just add into that language when that use impedes the recreational purpose. So it would not stop me or anybody else from going and sitting on the park bench or even sleeping on it if I decided to do that, unless that use was impeding what was happening at the park, like Downtown Live or use for a recreational purpose at Lear Park.
Where you cannot sleep overnight.
Right.
That's an ordinance
So
that's
that's
already in
camping,
place.
yes,
Right.
correct? Or that would be covered by camping, right?
Yes.
Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, in that area, since the mayor's task force had done something very valuable in determining the amount, and it took a lot of work to do this, but determining that there are adequate beds, adequate shelter for the homeless if they choose to utilize that. Thus, that opens the door for us to be able to say, or to enforce provisions that close the park and would prohibit people from sleeping there at night, and also would still be not able to sleep, for instance, on this would keep them, I believe, from sleeping on picnic tables, for
Sure.
instance.
Right, yeah, using things for its unintended purpose.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, back to Mr. Burtle. Now that we've got this, you can finish what you're saying now, that Terry can discuss this
Okay.
amendment we've talked about.
I wanted to make sure, I would like Kristen would, I would like all of 80 included. I think if you move them from the east side, you're moving them to the west side, and we don't need that. If it follows all of 80, that's one of our main corridors. I think that would solve the problem of where do we start and where do we stop. I don't need them up there at Spur 63 and Highway 80 with signs. I mean, I just don't think that's conducive to people coming into our town and portray what we're wanting to look for. And the other side is, we stopped at 300, Gilmore Road and 300 and the Loop. I think we ought to continue that on all the way around, even to J.C. Drive even. That would include that area there of, major intersections that we have. I'm not sure about Cotton Street, but
Talking about Loop 281 around to, well, if we're gonna do that, I think we ought to go on around to 31, because there's a lot of panhandling down at that intersection.
if that's in the city, I'm not sure if that's in the city.
I think it is. Yeah.
But the way, the whole thing is to like you say, is to draw these people to get help, to draw them to an area where we're not handing them out money like Dr. Mack says we don't need to do, because that's deterrent to them. So I don't want to just move them, shift them from one side of town to the other. I would rather them go get help.
Yes, Ms. Williams, you're about to come out of your seat.
To your point, I'm sorry, I am. To your point, I will say this, I do think a lot of due diligence went into identifying the areas that we're specifically looking at. Because those are the areas that I know I've gotten the phone calls about. I know the mayor's gotten the phone calls about them. And that's how those areas were prioritized. I do agree with what you said, Ms. Ishihara, about maybe looking at doing all of Highway 80, maybe looking at doing all the loop. But I think that we need to err on the side of caution with this, because if we continue on, I love what you said, and I'm sorry, I was smiling, because we do have to be cognizant that we don't want to just transfer people from one area of town to the other. And living and representing a district where we always seem to get the transferees, which is fine with me, because Jesus loved the least of these. We have to be very cautious how we implement this, because if we do, it sounds to me, and I was laughing, I'm sorry, I think it's a great idea, let me be clear, but I had a smile on my face because I'm like, okay, well, are we just going to do the whole city?
Answer to
And
that
so
is
that
no,
was my
we're not.
question. And that's my point, because I don't think we should.
Here's my concern, council, and I appreciate everyone's input. Everyone has put thoughtful input into this. But let's remember, this is something new. We're trying something new, and we're going to try to do this for the betterment of those involved. We don't want to use too broad of a paintbrush to paint our first stroke.
Right.
We can always add to and/or subtract from. This is not something we do one time, we never get to revisit this again. And I've always been a proponent of small government. I don't want government to come in and paint this huge picture that is not appropriate. So I understand concerns everywhere that we've discussed, and I acknowledge those concerns. But let's be cautious where we tread here, because we need to be very cognizant of everyone involved. This is once again, this is a very sensitive issue.
Yes.
And having sat through every single one of the task force meetings, I understand that, and I know you all do as well. But let's be cautious as we move forward, okay? Now, I know you all have some more things to say, and I'm not going to cut you off yet, but we do have 2 speaker cards, and I'm sorry I didn't let you all speak earlier, but I appreciate you all being patient on this ordinance, so just 1 second. I'll ask Kendall Land to come forward, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name, Kendall Land. I am the pastor at First Presbyterian Church in downtown Longview. Our church is situated, do you want to go back to that slide that showed the downtown area? Our church is situated, we have an entire block of this area. That's our entire church. And as this ordinance would directly affect us, our community, our ministry, I would encourage the council to table this discussion for more input from folks like me and the other congregants in our congregation, the 100 people who are at our church every day of the week, from Sunday to Friday. And we would love to spend some time with this ordinance, to pray over it, to talk about it, and then even come back to you at a designated time and tell you how we think it will affect us, because we live and work in that spot. And so I'd encourage y'all to table this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brian Dahlberg?
Good evening. Well, it's just my luck to follow fine Minister Kendall. My name is Brian Dahlberg, and I wanted to thank each of you for your service. And David, congratulations for your pending retirement. Great job. We're gonna miss you. I applaud you each for being willing to step into this issue with grace and love. It's a tough topic, and it's one that our city has struggled with for a while. I understand we can't legally pass a law that would include our entire city limits, and that's not the goal. And we don't want to do that to like you said, the least of these amongst us. But we can choose zones, and I spoke to some folks today about that issue. And, you know, as they're currently identified, we're leaving basically all of the western Longview uncovered, the Pine Tree area and northwest from there. The way I thought about it is it basically is creating an implied area that it is okay to go panhandle, because it would be one of the only areas that you can do that now. You know, we've got an opportunity tonight to alter those zones before this is passed with the amendment or proposed proposal that Mr. Pirtle has, and you know, encompass all of 80, which is the core thoroughfare through, you know, a good portion of our town. So, you know, I just don't see a logical explanation for why, if it's bad on East 80, why is it okay on West 80? And I would just like to encourage you guys to consider, you know, consider that as you vote tonight.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now I'm back to council again. And I apologize for not letting you gentlemen speak earlier, but we kind of got into that. So, any more discussion?
I have a question, and just a point of clarification. I'm sorry, I need to ask this. Doesn't the ordinance itself apply to the restaurants and the ATMs, the things we were talking about? That's throughout the city?
Yes.
Correct? So it's not like we're leaving out a part of the city, right? Okay, I'm just trying to make sure. I'm just trying to clear. Okay, all right.
Okay, now, would someone like to make a proposed amendment? Or does someone want to make a motion?
Do we need to make a motion to approve the ordinance first and then make the amendments?
No, I would
No.
just make a motion with the amendments that were suggested by Councilor Shahara and Councilor Pirtle.
Okay.
And we were able to get to those before the meeting to include that specific language in the documents in front of you.
This is what we have right here.
Yeah, so with the amendments, so.
I make a motion that we approve the amendments as in the documents that we received earlier.
And so would the amendment include all of 80 or not all of
It would
80?
include the Terry
No,
Ward.
it would be from Gilmer Road. What is in the amended ordinance that you have before you would be from Industrial East going west on West Marshall to 6th Street. Would stop there and then pick up again on Gilmer Road and go from Gilmer to Fisher Road, and 1/2 mile on each side of.
I would draw that in. I want all of 80 if I can get.
Okay, well, can we do separately? I will make a motion to make an amendment to Section 5877 to the verbiage there, which I believe is presented to everybody tonight, to include that when such use impedes the recreational purposes for which it is intended. I would make a motion to make that amendment to the proposed ordinance change.
Let's go and vote on that.
Okay, we can vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
And then I would also make a motion to change the zone for Highway 80 to include all of Highway 80 within the city limits of Longview.
What, you know, hold on just a minute.
Yes.
I mean, what we have in our ordinance is we define those specifically by boundaries. Terry, is that correct?
Yes.
And so I think, you know, we need to make sure that we have it identified. And so if we're going, and that's what I was saying earlier, I think Mr. Pirtle came and talked to Terry, and he was able to come up with some language to be reflective of that. If we need to come back and change that, I suggest we leave the ordinance as it is, and then we can, with your language that you have, but we can come back and expand it at a later meeting if we need to, because I think it needs to be defined within the statute instead of just saying all of 80. Does that make sense?
Then here's what we can legally, we can do this tonight, correct, Jim? We can approve the ordinance as amended by these boundaries right here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And if we so desire, we can come back at our next meeting when you all have time to prepare additional boundaries and add to it, correct?
Right. Like you said, we can As I think this is going to be a fluid ordinance.
Correct. I do
that
too.
may
We
be
don't know what's going to happen until we see it happen.
We may be removing some of these,
We
that it
may
could
say
be
there's no reason for this
expanded.
area, but we can,
Right.
so we can approve this tonight and come back at our next meeting if we so desire with additional language to amend,
I would
correct?
suggest that tonight.
Would someone like to make that
I
a
have
motion?
one quick question, and I apologize. The rationale for making it a half mile on either side of West Marshall versus a quarter of a mile east side, on east?
That was Mr. Jackson's suggestion, or Mr. Finley's suggestion. That covers a lot like, if we're going down around the loop, it covers a lot like Pine Tree Football Stadium, which they can't
Okay,
have
all
it
right.
there, but it might catch the intersection of Harrison Road and the loop, where it's just, we're fixing.
Apologize.
No, hey, we're here to discuss the business of the city. We
But
can
now,
stay
let
here
me
all night.
understand this. We are going from Gilmer Road to Fisher Road on 80 at this
Yes.
point, and from 300 or Gilmer Road around to where on the loop?
Cotton.
Cotton Street,
Yes.
back by the restaurant right there in the bingo parlor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The Whataburger is on one corner, a vacant lot on the
Yeah.
other. And
So on Gilmer Road, we're talking from Gilmer Road on 80 all the way out through Spring Hill to the city limits?
No, I don't have Gilmer Road other than as a starting point. We don't have anything north or
So
south
Nothing
on
goes
Gilmer.
through David's district,
Yes.
so you're wide open.
Question.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
as far as my district, I'm kind of interested to see what happens. I don't think there's any point in doing anything yet, but we can always amend it if all of a sudden everybody pushes out to Hawkins and Gilmer Road, that intersection, then we can start looking at that. But until we see what's going to happen, I'm not interested in having an ordinance that covers the whole thing.
Thank you, sir.
The multimodal facility is in there, correct? I need a point of clarification on that, because I know we have millions of dollars coming in right now for the new transfer center. It's not in there. So that area where the multimodal center is located is not, because I was looking at the map trying to be clear. The downtown area.
That's within a half a mile of 80.
Yeah, but is that included is my question. And it looks like a no.
We need to go back to the downtown. The downtown area does not. It simply goes where Moberly and Cotton Street connect, and then it goes back west. That's not to say we couldn't come back and include that area.
Right. Yeah, and that's fine. I will add this, though, maybe I'm just going to say what I feel. It should have absolutely been included. We have millions of dollars going over there right now. We have the new grant that's going to move the transfer center over there. We've poured tons of money in restoration of the Amtrak facility and renovating that, and so I don't understand why that's not included. But if we can come back and look at doing that, because kind of like you guys were saying, we're moving people from one area to another, and what I find troubling is that they always seem to come to the same area. So, and so that's kind of my thought on that. So, okay, if we can come back and make adjustments, okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve as our amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Finley. Thank you for all y'all's help. Consideration making a resolution appointing reappointments and chair designation for Longview Economic Development Corporation. I'm doing that one, huh? Okay. Our LEEDCO board, we've had a few changes in the LEEDCO board, and so we are bringing before you tonight to move Claire Abernathy Henry up to a voting board member from the non-voting member, and also to add 2 non-voting members because we are losing 2. We're losing Keith Honey, and as Claire moved up, we lost a second non-voting member, so we're going to add Rodney Bull, who is from Komatsu, and David Cooley from Boss Crane. That's our slate of board members for LEEDCO. And we're going to reappoint Frank Edwards, DJ Nelson to their second 2-year term on the non-voting board members. Any questions from council on this? Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we'll consider a resolution nominating a candidate for the Gray County Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Planning and zoning. We did not.
Appointment, nominee?
No, we should have.
No,
that was
that's not tonight.
Oh.
For the vice chair, we were going to approve that tonight, to appoint a vice
Okay.
chair.
You're going to approve that tonight?
Yeah,
Vice Chair.
the vice chair.
And who the vice chair would be? I don't have that.
Jack Jenkins.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here in front of me. I'm sorry, my bad. I'm looking at two different things. So the vice chair for planning and zoning will be Mr. Jack Jenkins. Is there a motion?
I make a
Move to
motion.
approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, we need to appoint a new GCAD board member. For many years, Dave McWhorter has been our representative from the city of Longview and has done an outstanding job representing us, and Mr. McWhorter has elected to no longer seek that position again. We thank him for his service for so many years. He's done so many things for our community. He was a council member, he was a mayor, he's been a GCAD member, he's been an advocate for our community in every way, and we appreciate Mr. McWhorter's service and thank him and wish him well in his future endeavors. Tonight, we're going to bring forward Mr. Keith Honey, who has agreed to be our GCAD member from the city of Longview, and we are excited about his opportunity to serve us, and he is a consummate advocate for our city, and I think we're very fortunate to have someone such as Keith step up and say he would be representing us on the GCAD board. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Items of community interest. Mr. Moore.
I had the honor to welcome the Ukrainian delegation to Longview and tell them a little bit about our fine community. Excuse me. They were very eager to learn about decentralized government, open government, e-government, to fight the corruption that's going on there. Staff did an excellent job following up, visiting with them about other items pertaining to what they were interested in learning, finance, city attorney's office, et cetera. And then as the chief talked about during the public safety update, we had a wonderful lunch at Central Fire Station, and then they got to look at all of our expensive toys. So it was a good group.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Snoddy.
I have nothing.
Ms. Williams.
Nope.
Ms. Ishihara.
I think I have a video. There, oh, there you go. So several of us attended the exciting groundbreaking and dirt throwing shovel experience at the Arboretum today. So this is a pretty cool video of some of the clearing that's happened. Gregg County and the city have been working very hard to clear some of this to get ready for the initial construction. So it's exciting to see some of that happen. And that's it. Excited to get that
Cassie, do you know how to
underway.
work that shovel?
You got it. Yep, you got it.
Okay. That's exciting news. Mr. Wright.
I think, yeah, we'll be having a town hall meeting in District 5 on October 10th. I plan to just talk a little bit about basics of our new budget for the year, and then it's an open forum for any questions or comments that anybody in District 5 might have. So it'd be great to see all of you there.
Mr. Purtle.
Yeah, I wanted to, I visited with the mayor on this earlier. We, through some diligence of some guys in West Longview, we have a factory coming back that way, or a warehouse factory type deal. And they're bringing 70 jobs with them, and they'll also bring with the potential of 40 to 50 more jobs. They've signed a lease on a structure, and they are moving in as we speak. So I hope that's a good sign for the school on that side of town, and also for some of the other businesses around that area that'll thrive and make them grow a little bit more. And hesitate to say who it is. I'll let the mayor do that if he wants to. But
Feel free.
Anyway, that's a good sign for that side a little bit. I'm glad to see it growing over there. And I'm going to try to help them in any way the city can as far as permitting and developmental services. And we may visit with Mr. Mansfield and see if there's anything we can get him to do for us too. Thank you.
Very good. Great news for that area of town. As in any area of town, we have someone, businesses of any kind moving into our community. We're thankful to have it anywhere we can get it. We appreciate that very much. Mr. Willard.
Nothing, thank you.
Help us plan for the future of walking and biking and enter for a chance to win a bike. Take our survey at longviewtexas.go/walkbike. Development Services invites you to a public meeting about the United Development Code Monday, October 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Montauk Convention and Activity Center. The Longview Haunted Library is October 20th and 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are on sale now, $2 for adults, $1 for children, 12 and under. The State of the City is now being broadcast on air or online at longviewtexas.gov/cityview. Broadcast times are 9 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 p.m., and for all the insomniacs, 2 a.m. I guess I'll catch that one tonight. Our Veterans Plaza at Teague Park. This will be the last time you'll hear me say donate to the Veterans Plaza at Teague Park. We have come to an agreement with the veterans, and we have secured that wall for Teague Park through our city of Longview, and I'm proud to say that we have stepped up and done what we're supposed to do. Mr. Willard, I thank you and your guidance and leadership for making this a reality. This is a park that we should all be proud of, and our city should be proud of, and we should do everything we can to help our veterans, and I appreciate the fact that we have done that. And so this is the last time you'll hear me say donate to the veteransplaza.org. Thank you, sir. Upcoming events. There are several community events with the community. The Neil McCoy and Friends Benefit Concert for the Neil McCoy's Angel Network is Saturday, September 30th at 7 p.m. at the Turner University Belcher Center. If you've never been to that, you should go. Neil puts on an amazing program. He brings in a lot of great entertainment, but no more than anything, he helps children of East Texas that need help in the worst possible ways. And we just thank you, Neil, for your service to our community. You are a true hero. Monster Dash 2017, benefiting the Junior League of Longview, is Saturday, October 7th at 8 a.m. Register online at runlikeamonster.com. That's what it says, runlikeamonster.com. Okay. That's always a fun run as well. Movies on the Plaza, hosted by 100 Acres of Heritage, is also Saturday, October 7th at Heritage Plaza. Family-free fun starting at 7 p.m. with free popcorn and drinks while supplies last. Art Walk Longview will be Thursday, October 12th from 5 to 8 p.m. Downtown business exhibiting and selling arts, musicians, and other performances are also part of the free event. For more information on any of these events, please check out a calendar at visitlongviewtexas.com to learn more. Our Go Giver Gala is coming up on Saturday, January the 6th at 7 p.m. This will be at Montcalm. This is so appropriate that we're talking about this tonight because this is the fundraiser we're having to raise money for what we've been discussing this evening at length. The hot officers that Mr. Jackson referred to that we talked about earlier are unfunded, and those positions will cost in the range of $170,000 to have 2 officers. And we need to fund those officers, and we hope that this event will help to do that. All the proceeds benefit efforts to help reduce our homelessness in Longview, which should be all of our goals. So I'm asking the citizens of Longview to participate. I'm asking each of you council people to participate. You've got a packet here for you to go out and solicit sponsorships because we need people to take a chance and step up and step out, put your money where your mouth is. It's time for us to do something good for our community as we all try to every single day, and I appreciate your help on that. Survey. Which trail do you visit the most often in Longview? What'd y'all think? Borman, number 1, 54%. Cargill, 15. Guthrie, 2. Juliana Park, 4. Grace Creek Mountain Bike Trail, 1%. And I've never visited a trail in Longview, 25%, which that saddens me. If you haven't visited a trail in Longview, you're missing out, especially this time of the year. We have great opportunity and great weather this time of year to go out and visit our parks. The trails are amazing. So, you know, take a stroll. You don't have to run hard or walk hard. Just take a stroll and enjoy what we have out there. It's a great time to do that. So that's 25% of our population needs to take advantage of this. Good question. At the upcoming neighborhood night out on October Third, throughout Longview, I wish the neighborhoods would feed me burgers, 22%, hot dogs, 11, potluck, 17, desserts, 8. And here's the shocker. I don't have plans to attend a National Night Out party, 42%. Listen here, Longview, if you want to get involved, it's time to get involved. If you want to help reduce crime, we have to quit talking about it. We got to do something about it. Join a neighborhood night out party. This is what we do to come together as communities to help eradicate crime. That's what we're trying to do. So if you're that 42% that's never been to one, you're missing out. Number one, it's a blast. You get to see people, talk about things, interact, and you get to eat. It's a lot of fun. So if you're not planning on doing that, you should make plans to do it. It's a very important thing, and it's all part of helping our community become a stronger community where we are in control, not the criminals. So make plans to do that. That's it. We now have executive session to discuss personnel matters under the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074. We'll discuss and deliberate the appointment, employment, duties, and succession plan for the Office of City Manager. City Council will reconvene in public session for action on the above item discussed in the executive session. We will do this after we reconvene. So at this point, we'll convene to executive session. Thank you. Now reconvene in open session to discuss, I had a sheet up here somewhere, I've been messing with my papers. We'll consider a resolution appointing an acting city manager and authorizing the mayor to execute any document associated with said appointment upon retirement of Mr. Willard. Our resolution will be to ask Mr. Keith Bonds, our assistant city manager, to take that acting position when Mr. Willard retires in December. And Mr. Bonds will be the acting city manager for a period of 6 months where we will reevaluate him for the final position. Is there a motion?
So moved to approve.
Is there a second? Is all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.
All right.